After escaping a soul-crushing, toxic relationship that lasted 5 years, I now seek advice on how to rebuild my confidence, social circle, and regain a healthy sense of self. Me F22, him M24. I'll try my best to explain my relationship and those 5 years as brief as possible, but yet as detailed as possible too. First, a few things might need to be said to understand my situation and mindset. So, I'm 22, born and living in Europe but from Arab/Muslim descent. I was raised in a traditional Arab-Muslim family in which you are often taught that marriage is very important and that seeking a pious partner is mandatory. And, maybe religious PPL will understand this, guilt is something that can run through you quite often, at least often. Especially when you live in between two cultures that don't share the same value system, one being more conservative and the other being more liberal. For my family background, I don't have the healthiest family, but we still love each other. My father is a very controlling, authoritarian man that doesn't express himself, and my mother is a very anxious, paranoid mother, and I've always been the one in my family to contain, curb, and balance their very strong personalities. Plus, my parents are immigrant workers with no real education, and I've always had to guide them through a lot, which I don't complain about. As it'll be said after, school meant a lot to me. I think that I transferred the validation that my parents didn't give me to my teachers, and I've always been attracted to the teacher figure. For a long time it was unconscious, even non-romantically. I was Muslim, but my faith and religious practices before him were very healthy and never guiltful. Even though my parents had conservative Islamic values, they didn't force me to anything, so everything felt like a choice. Few details about him. He was not very confident, or, precisely, he was always demeaning of himself and others. He paid a lot of attention to his appearance. A lot? He had very good taste and could spend money that he didn't have on clothes or shoes. No father figure and a toxic relationship with his big brother. He actually had a weird relationship with money. He will often comment on my family. My parents are working class, but my brothers have very good paying jobs, and I've always worked to have my own money, saying, "You can't understand not having money. Your family is rich," which was not true, was not very generous, never bought any gift. Will comment on everything he bought to me. So this ice cream is €7. This meal is €15. I hope you enjoy it. He'll often talk about how his friends had girlfriends that paid for everything. I was buying him gifts because I like it, and even though it was not returned, I felt like it was important, but sometimes felt used. On the other hand, he was very tender and expressed his feelings a lot. He could call me just to tell me he loved me. He had the type of personality that I liked, calm. We had a lot in common, family background, religion, a lot of common tastes. Before meeting my now ex and first boyfriend at 17, I was a very PR'd but very social and ambitious person. I was an extremely good student. Basically, school and teachers were my life since home was so regulated. I had a lot of maturity and confidence in me, physically and mentally. I knew what I was able to be and do. I never had at the time a boyfriend, only a kissing experience with a guy, but never had felt love. I was not really interested in relationships, and I was extremely Zuli PR'd, but I paradoxically had a lot of desire and felt good in my femininity. I met him through social media 5 years ago. He was a little bit older. He came talking and he had the exact same background as me and seemed very healthy. What I liked about him was that he didn't come by flirting directly with me and came like a friend, and I didn't felt threatened or forced to anything, if that makes sense. Anyway, after a few months of talking, we decided to see each other. In hindsight, he was actually very controlling and negative. Within a year and a half of being together, I lost almost all of my friends, and I felt like SHD physically and mentally. I was failing my college year and was very alone. Few details here. I don't want to charge him and him only because I don't think that it'll help, and because I feel like I accepted a lot, which makes me also responsible for what I lived. After a year with him, I started college. I had already lost almost all my friends, and he guilted me a lot about having guy friends. I spent a very lonely and depressing year. He also trained me not to talk about the relationship with anyone because people will try to break us. Men will try to steal you by breaking us. Your girlfriends will be jealous. Very important point. He used religion to guilt me a lot. I recall myself crying so often because I felt like a SLT for talking to a man or wearing certain clothes. In retrospect, I would say that it started with very small unpleasant comments, either on my look, "You have this," insert an asymmetry in my face, "Why don't you do something for it? Why don't you dress like her? She looks skinnier/thicker/taller," or my personality. He was very negative to himself, and he tried to plant the seed in me. He had already failed one of his years in college and HS before and was not the best student, which I didn't blame him for. He actually never really helped through college, even though we were in the same college. Weirdly, I think that he enjoyed seeing me fail in a way. I felt like he was like feeling superior and seeing me helpless. He'll often say things like, "My friends' girls have really good grades. I thought you were smart. I want a girlfriend who succeeds in life." But at the same time making sure that he didn't help me and that no one did. In brief, it was always small, innocent comments, but listed one after one. It really broke my confidence. I was very dependent on him. I couldn't do anything without his approval, so I stopped going out, having friends, etc. I think that this part is very important to talk about. He was always very contradictory concerning sexuality. Meeting him, he proudly portrayed himself as a virgin that never been with anyone, which is often encouraged in our religion. He shamed me almost for 2 years because of the guy I kissed in HS. He would always express how much he despised girls that were sexually liberated. If she does that, she is a SLT. I appreciated you being a virgin. I would have never talked to you if you were not a virgin. But at the same time, he was very demanding and did not respect some of my boundaries. I was a virgin meeting him and left a virgin. I was never obsessed with virginity, but the way he despised other women's sexuality really shamed me in my desires. He would very often send pictures of his parts or ask me to send pictures. He would tell me that he wanted me to have sex with him because it's not the same as others. You're not a SLT like other girls. He wouldn't respect my boundaries. I already wrote a lot about him. My question is this. I spent 5 years with him. We're no longer together. I feel like I lost a lot of myself in this relationship. I lost so much confidence, but I'm recovering. When I wake up from the nightmare, I started to detach myself from him while still being with him. How can I not feel like I've wasted the best and youngest years of my life to him? How to recreate a circle of friends after almost losing all of them while being a young adult? How can I reconnect with a healthy perception of my own sexuality without feeling like an absolute SLT? How to definitely move on and build what I've lost to him? How to get on my projects and ambition back again, since I feel like I'm not capable enough. And failure now feels very violent to me. After dropping out, I successfully started college again. TLDR, after 5 years in my first, very toxic relationship, I finally get rid of him, but I am alone and having a hard time recovering from it. Thank you so much if you read it completely, and thank you for your answers.